Good evening, Wood County. I'm Brooke Ebersole, General Manager here at BG24 News. Every week we bring you the stories that matter most on campus, in the community, across the state, and across the nation. The Producers Panel is where we take a step back and talk about the stories in our own opinion. But these opinions do not reflect the views of the organization and do not impact the way we cover these or any other story. We'll discuss an Ohio Senate bill that could affect students at BGSU. We'll then discuss the men's basketball team before finally discussing a fundraiser held by a fraternity here on campus. It's all here on your BG24 News Producers Panel. The University Undergrad Student Government voted Monday night to approve a resolution opposing Ohio Senate Bill 4. This bill would make public universities in Ohio lower the cost of in-state tuition. If passed, the bill would cut enrollment 5% by 2016-17 academic year. Joining us now is the USG Internal Affairs Committee Chair of the Senate, Jeff DeRoe, and co-author of the resolution and Student Affairs Chair, Nadia Oler. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. So do you want to kind of just jump us in here and talk a little bit about, how this came about, how it affects people?
What is this bill about, basically?
Yeah. So in the Ohio State Senate, there's the president of the Senate, Keith Faber. And Keith Faber has presented Senate Bill 4, which is calling all in-state institutions to lower their in-state cost of attendance or tuition for academic year 2016-2017 by 5%. So that means that the Board of Trustees has to come up with a plan by September of 2015. And then we learned about it, and so...
And so what happened kind of was our president of USG got in contact with some other USG presidents from across the state about this, because when you're looking at the funding models for our institution in particular, state funding has continually gone down, and so tuition has become the bulk of our budget every year. And so when you're looking at the kinds of things that would have to be cut or decreased to kind of compensate for that decrease in student tuition, you're looking at a lot of student services. You might be looking at some faculty cuts. Not that those are necessarily what will be happening, but so we started sitting down with Sheridan Stoll, the Chief Financial Officer, Jill Carr, the Vice President of Student Affairs, and just kind of getting an idea of what their thoughts were and where they thought that cuts might have to happen in the future if this were to pass.
So you guys then made the thing to appeal it. So walk me through that process.
Okay, so after we had our meetings with Sherry Stoll and Jill Carr, Nadia and I sat down and we drafted legislation. And so in USG, in order for the undergraduate student government to make any formal statement about any issue regarding the student body, we have to draft what's called a resolution. The resolution goes to the floor. It's open for discussion of the entire Senate, which is approximately 53 members right now. And then it goes to a vote. And then the Senate can choose to uphold the resolution or to oppose the resolution and vote it down. If they choose to uphold it, the resolution acts as the actual voice of the student body.
So then it's publicly known, then that's your stance on it. So if it doesn't pass, you cannot say, we publicly stand this way. You can't even say that.
Exactly.
So like, is there a certain percentage that it has to pass by on the vote, or?
In our bylaws, it simply states that the resolution has to pass by a majority vote.
Okay, so in this particular instant, was it unanimous? Was it not so unanimous? Was it close at all?
It was not unanimous. The majority of the Senate, a good majority actually, over 2/3 of the majority, voted in favor of the resolution. However, it was not unanimous.
Okay, yeah.
You want to talk about a little bit, before we went on the air, you kind of told me you were going to go down to the State House and with a lobbyist and with President Mazie. You kind of want to tell me what you're going to do down there, what you hope the outcome is from when you go down there.
Absolutely. So myself, our USG president, and then another senator are going down with President Mazie and a BGSU lobbyist. They're having an inter-university council meeting so that's all of the presidents, all of the lobbyists, some chief financial officers, those kinds of positions that all get together, and we're kind of going to discuss just the SSI funding model for higher education, as well as just this bill in particular and some other bills. So we're hoping to really get some FaceTime with some senators and just kind of be able to sit down and talk about what does this look like for our institutions? Are there alternative ways to cut the overall cost of higher education for students without just, taking just straight cut to our tuition and to our budget.
Okay. Now, obviously, BG is not the only school that this is going to affect. So have you been working with other schools in Ohio, other, main schools, little schools? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So a lot of different institutions across Ohio have gotten together, especially those within the Inter-University Council. And so that's been presidents meeting up together. That's been chief financial officers meeting up together, as they normally do, but also discussing this issue. And then our presidents, multiple presidents across the state of Ohio, are getting together to write a letter formally opposing it and signing that from all of the presidents of the undergraduate student governments of those institutions.
So does that seem to be around around Ohio, like does everyone seem to have this opinion basically then? Is it not just Bowling Green? Do you even know that?
From what we can gauge based on our conversations with Brian Koheiser, who's the president of the undergraduate student body here at Bowling Green, is that's the way that most other institutions are feeling as well. The Senate, we as the Senate haven't been in communication with other schools just because that's primary here at Bowling Green. That's the job of the president of the undergraduate student body.
So, and then President Mazie, does she have much input in this at all? What is her, because I know you mentioned her name several times here. How is she influenced in this at all, if any?
President Mazie is lobbyist #1 for Bowling Green State University. So when it comes to representing Bowling Green State University, not only at the university level, but also at the state level, President Mazie is #1. There are other lobbyists, there are other representatives, such as Nadia, who will be going as the undergraduate representative next week, and a number of other administrators. But President Mazie is still prime #1 lobbyist.
Yeah, and just curious, because I know we talk a lot about Ohio, Bill 4. Is there any other issues that you guys have really been tackled, this semester or in the upcoming future that you'd like to discuss?
I could talk about something that my committee has taken on in particular, the It's On Us campaign by President Obama.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
President Obama commissioned the It's On Us campaign. Brian Koheiser, our president, did sign that initiative that President Obama released. And then one of our senators, Colin Claywell, who serves on my committee, he's really taken that under his wing and he's really moving forward with that. It's a really big initiative that he's tackling in the residence halls right now, getting residence halls to sign a pledge supporting the It's On Us campaign and making awareness about sexual assault and sexual harassment on college campuses. So that's a really big deal that we've been working on.
Yeah, that is. So do you think, going back to Bill 4, getting students really involved, students that aren't in USG, kind of getting them up to date on what's going on, getting them educated on how this could affect them, how vital is that to you?
That's incredibly vital, because when you just look at the face value of the Senate bill itself, it looks like such a great thing. I could definitely take a 5% tuition decrease, but when you look at the ways that that's going to impact the university, you're looking at student services being cut or moved to opt-out fees, so those aren't necessarily guaranteed anymore, and you're looking at possible cuts within staffing of offices and things, and so it's just kind of the overall impact of the student experience that would be decreased by this.
Okay, well, we certainly have high hopes, and we will keep glued to the screens to see what happens next. Thank you guys so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Coming up, we'll discuss thoughts on this year's turnaround on the men's basketball team. Stay with us. The BGSU men's basketball team is now 19-9 overall and 11-6 in the MAC. Despite losing the tough game last night, the Falcons are still second in the MAC East. This is a major improvement from last year when they finished last in the MAC. Well, Katie, this definitely sounds like this has been a big jump,
It's been an immense turnaround for first-year head coach Chris Jans coming into this program. They were 12-20 last year. They finished dead last in the MAC. The year before that, they were 13-19. They finished second to last in the MAC then. And so for Chris Jans to come in here, his first year as head coach, and to turn this program around, they're actually tied for, it's a three-way tie for the MAC East. Buffalo, Kent State, and Bowling Green are all 11-6 in the MAC East. For him to turn this program around and to have them be contenders even for a MAC championship title is huge, especially from looking at last year.
Underdog.
Oh, absolutely.
So I know they had that tough loss last night, but and be honest with me, how do you think their chances are to stand to make the NCAA tournament? Because obviously you could argue that they might stand a chance in the MAC tournament, but they'd have to definitely win that to make it. Do you think they have that team? Are they ready for that?
The NCAA tournament, I'm not going to go there yet, but the MAC tournament, I think that they have potential to win it, but looking at the MAC West, Toledo is a really tough team. Central Michigan is another tough team. And then, like I said, we have Buffalo and Kent State in there. So, and Miami. The MAC is a very tough conference for basketball. It's not the SEC or the Big East, but it's a tough basketball conference. And just
it's not a cakewalk.
It's definitely not. But I think just looking at where they have been and where they are now, and just the complete opposite of what it was last year. It's a complete opposite. People are going to the games now, and last night it was such a fun energy in the Stroh. It was so fun. They lost by 1 point to Kent State in the last minute felt like an hour in that game, and it was just a fun environment to be in. And it's just been a huge turnaround. So
are you seeing more people, like you mentioned, show up at these games? Because I know usually when I attend a men's basketball game, there's like nobody there. Where like hockey and football is more crowded, but basketball, and maybe it's because men's basketball always hasn't been so good, and maybe women's basketball, which has usually been better, and now it's down. So we got kind of a flop there. But I mean, are we seeing a trend of those games being more popular, or?
There are more people coming. I'm not going to say that it's great, because the attendance still isn't what I think it should be, because I think that if you have a team that's tied for first in the MAC right now, and they were first in the MAC East last night before falling to Kent State, then that place should be packed. Right. There should be fans there watching Bowling Green every home game that they're there. Especially it was senior night, Rashawn Holmes, the leading scorer for the Falcons, the 12th player in Bowling Green history to pass 1,000 points. There should be people there. And while there were some students there, it was very loud, and it was a good atmosphere. There were more people than there were last year, but I still don't think there's enough.
Well, I think at least when I came to BG basketball was not something that anybody thought twice about. It was something that people kind of honestly scoffed at, and I think now that people, we have a new coach, but I don't think a lot of people know that how much of an impact bringing this new guy in has had on us. I think people just have, at this point, just written off BG basketball, and I don't think that's right.
I can agree with you. I think just looking at the past, it's always been about the women's basketball team, because they have been the powerhouse. They made it to the quarterfinals in the NIT tournament, WNIT tournament last year. And it's always been about the women, and now it's starting to be about the men. And I think there are more people coming, but I don't think Chris Jans has really unlocked his full potential with this team. I think more is yet to come. He's going to have his new recruiting class come in next year. He did recruit Jovan Austin, Delvin Dickerson, and Pep Joseph this year. But
when you say with the new recruiting, is there going to be, do you think next year, are they going to fall, or are we going to keep progressing with the new players and losing players?
I think that we will see some more progression. I think next year there are more. We'll still have Spencer Parker, Jovan Austin, Delvin Dickerson, Pep Joseph, but we do lose Rashawn Holmes, which is a huge player for this team. He averages over 14 points per game. So he's a big key player. Javon Clark averages just under 10 points per game. So we are losing two big players. Anthony Henderson as well. But I think with Chris Jans, in the reins now, I think that we will see some better recruiting coming into Bowling Green, because I think what people are going to do, and it's we've seen it with hockey now, people are going to want to come to Bowling Green to play basketball, just like people want to come to Bowling Green to play hockey.
Yep.
I think it's going to be a turnaround.
I think it was smart of Jans to come in and kind of keep a low profile for now, because we are losing so many people, at the end of this season. Great, you had one successful season, but don't come in here on your high horse until you know that you can keep a legacy going. And I do think that was a very smart PR move on his part.
The one thing that I do think that they are missing, because we talked about trying to get them in the national spotlight like the hockey team, is that signature win, that win against a ranked team on ESPN that'll get people on campus to say, oh, that's right, we do have a basketball team. Because I feel like that's how hockey's almost doing it, because now they're nationally ranked. People are like, oh, we should go to more games, because now it's not only the bleacher creatures that are packed, it's the whole stadium that is packed. And I feel like that's what basketball is missing, because when I looked at their schedule, the only bigger win they had was Western Michigan against your other top-tier teams. They haven't won. That's what they're missing.
I think with hockey, though, there's just so many less teams to play in hockey.
True, yes.
So I think with hockey, it's a limited schedule, and it just happens to be that Miami is a really good hockey team. And Miami's close to Bowling Green, so that's, they'll play Miami, they'll play Minnesota State, because, I mean, if you look at the WCHA as well, there are 3 nationally ranked teams just in our conference alone. And in basketball, the MAC is not going to get that much attention because it's not one of the big conferences like the SEC or the Big East. But I think once they start to play tougher teams, once this program keeps improving, they can start to take on more teams. Maybe we'll see them play Cincinnati or Xavier, maybe even in Ohio State once in a while, like we saw football play Wisconsin and Indiana.
Yep.
So I think once the program improves, they'll start to put in tougher teams.
That usually tends to happen, though, whenever teams start to make their presence known. They'll get, other teams saying, hey, let's schedule you because we still think we can beat you pretty bad, but you at least have enough national presence to where, it's not a write-off.
It's not a, oh my gosh, why are we playing them,
I mean, we've seen it with Wichita State as well. Who was Wichita State before last year? And then we saw them ride the NCAA tournament. We saw it with Dayton as well.
No
That's
kidding.
the
So
thing.
the smaller teams can make it known. They just need some tougher teams in that schedule.
That's what I love about the NCAA tournament is every year there was a little school, a smaller school, I should say, that rides and makes it all the way to the Final Four, like Dayton did last year, and then years before. It's every year there's someone, so you can never count out anyone in college basketball.
No, you definitely cannot. And speaking of Wichita State as well, good for Wichita State because we got Chris Jans from them. So,
Yeah, no kidding.
But
We took your NCAA coach and we brought him over here.
And
Thanks
maybe
for
he'll
that.
make us an NCAA tournament team. But
Yeah.
it's been good things for Bowling Green basketball so far. The men's program, I think, is really seeing an improvement this year, and I think it's going to continue.
Now, do you think the women's team, switching gears a little bit, since I know they are down, do you think they're going to improve at all?
Yes, I think they definitely will. This year, there was a lot of youth on the team. They lost some key players last year, Alexis Rogers, Jillian Halfhill, some good seniors, but they do have, they have a lot of youth, but they are reaching into that youth now. They were plagued by injuries this year as well. Erica Donovan, Jasmine Matthews, some of the upperclassmen that they have were injured. So they really relied on that youth to carry this team. So once that youth can, once the freshmen and the sophomores can really, find their place, I think they'll be good to go next year as well.
That's exciting. That's
Yeah.
exciting for us. It really is. Coming up when we return, we'll discuss Alpha Tau Omega's latest fundraiser. Stay with us. It's not unusual for fraternities to host fundraisers on campus, but Alpha Tau Omega held an unusually successful one. Reporter Amy Stegerwald found out why this event was different.
BGSU fraternity members auctioned off their hair at a live hair auction on Thursday, March 26th. The event, Tall Cuts for Corsi, raised money for Jake Corsi, a BGSU student with testicular cancer. Alpha Phi Omega Philanthropy Chair Seth Bumball says extensive planning went into the event. What's special about this fundraiser is that Corsi is a member of Phi Gamma Delta fraternity, not Alpha Phi Omega. Alpha Phi Omega fraternity saw that Corsi's family was in need and reached out. Members of both fraternities auctioned off their hair for Corsi. Hair went anywhere from $80 to $200. Although Corsi could not attend the event, his condition is improving. Bumball says that events like Tall Cuts are what connect the BGSU Greek community. Reporting for BG24 News, I'm Amy Stegerwald.
Well, we actually brought you a member of Alpha Tau Omega tonight. This is Seth Bumbaugh sitting here, which you participated in this, correct? That was you on the screen getting your head shaved?
Obviously, I have a different haircut now.
Yeah.
A little bit different. When going to this event, I noticed that there was so much support, and I was kind of a little unfamiliar with the background, but after talking to a lot of your fraternity members and other fraternity members, I realized that this event was not just for your fraternity. It was for another member of another fraternity. And that's what kind of really spoke to me because, don't get me wrong, philanthropy for all Greek life is amazing and extremely supportive, but to do this for another fraternity, to help out a member of another fraternity, really spoke to me, and it was really inspiring, I think.
Yeah, one of the things we always try to focus on is how are we taking what we learn in our own fraternity and taking it and using it to better not only the Greek community as a whole at Bowling Green, but also the campus itself. And the purpose was that we wanted to reach out to a student who needed help. After we learned about the kind of medical expenses he was going to have, and it tied into a lot with the mission statement of the event originally. Because originally, The event was for a guy named Johnny Lewis, who was one of our brothers who died of B-cell lymphoma. And when we found out that Jake Corsi was having a similar disease, we automatically thought Johnny Lewis would have wanted it this way.
Right, right. And I noticed after talking to different people there that not only members of your fraternity were getting their head shaved, but I know I talked to Jake Corsi's little, I think, and he was getting his head shaved. So to kind of see two different frats working together to raise money for a cause, and from what I hear, you guys raised a bunch of money.
Yeah, we ended up raising $4,200 for Jake Corsi and his family to cover his medical expenses. But what was unique about it is that it wasn't just members of my fraternity participating in the event, but we also had members of Phi Gamma Delta, or Fiji, on this campus participate. And there was a close relation to Jake Corsi himself because his little in the fraternity, Clay, who's also a close friend of mine, came and offered to donate his hair as well to tie into like the emotional aspect and really like down to the core of why we're trying to do this.
That's awesome.
So was it mainly fraternity, like people who showed up to this event? Did you guys see a bunch of diversity, different organizations and people from campus, or not so much?
The largest portion of the people that go there are going to be Greek because of the kind of connections we have within the Greek community. But we decided that we were going to reach out to other organizations that we're involved in. So each member of our fraternity was like, we're going to reach out to H2O Church.
Right.
I'm in undergraduate student government, so I reached out to them, and we really tried to tie in the whole community together as a whole.
That's good. I noticed a lot of sororities and other groups that were there too.
That was going to be my next question. Did you see any females in there that were just like gung-ho about getting their head shaved, or?
Actually, last year we had the sweetheart of our organization donate her hair as well, which that's entirely different. Like, men are very like, oh, it's just hair, it'll grow back.
Yeah.
And women are like, my hair is like part of my identity and how I look to everyone else. But I mean, it's definitely something we're open to every year, and it was awesome that she was able to do that for us last year.
And speaking with that, I mean, with your head, obviously you have a different look now. You can kind of identify on campus, you know, who got their head shaved for this cause. And yes, while you do look different, hair does grow back, but it kind of speaks for you, and it speaks for your fraternity, certainly.
Yeah, it definitely, it's a symbol is what it is, because we see that we see people doing this for like the St. Baldrick's Day and all that stuff too. That's something similar, and it just shows, you know, yeah, it's good.
When did this, you might not know off the top of your head, but how did this like come to be? You know, like for my sorority, I know that we do like a kidney fund, like a fundraiser every year, and that came to be because we had a sorority sister that had kidney failure, you know? So like, how long ago did this happen? How did this, I know you talked about one of your brothers who did die from lymphoma. Do you want to talk about like whose idea that was? How it started to be, oh, let's all shave our heads. Like,
what happened is, in 2012, Johnny Lewis died of the disease, and I believe that he had already graduated from Bowling Green, but the impact he left on the community was still there. And the members of the fraternity at that point, I wasn't involved in it yet, but they saw that there was something that needed to be done, something to leave a legacy for Johnny Lewis on the university. So they decided that because with his disease, he lost his hair, and they saw that connection. What can we do to raise money? So they founded the Johnny Lewis Scholarship, which is a scholarship that raises money for students coming to Bowling Green that study medical stuff. And so they raise money and make a scholarship for people that are studying medical diseases, so that way that they can, you know, help provide a future for people with the disease and the people that may be going around and trying to find cures for it and stuff like that.
that's a really awesome cause. I'm happy to see that continuing in the coming years. Thank you so much for coming and talking with us.
Yep, thank you for having me.
That's it for BG24 News Producers Panel tonight. Make sure you check out these stories and more on our website and on our Facebook page. And feel free to tweet us what you thought about these stories and issues. Have a good night.